morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Thanks for joining us in our Wellness Monday today. Our topic is going to be Thyroid Awareness Month. And Train 51 welcomes Dr. Christa Spence. And we're excited to have her today to talk about her journey in the book that we will be discussing, The Thyroid Puzzle Unraveled, Taming Chronic Stress for Optimal Thyroid Health. So let me talk a little bit about Dr. Christa Spence. She is an author, a certified nutritional functional informed professional. She has a clinical doctorate in occupational therapy and owner of Life Wellness Occupational Therapy. So I'm excited to have her. And without further ado, we're going to dive right into this conversation. Hi, Dr. Spence. How are you?
Hi, Sharon. How are you? Good morning.
Good morning. So as I was reading your book, I have to tell you, I appreciate, medical jargon and, can be so confusing sometimes, and even just words and what have you. I really found everything that you wrote so easy to read and digest. I appreciate your clarity in that and how you described your journey and your resources and so on. So for those of you that we will bring that resource to you at the end of this conversation, but I appreciate that awareness of the book content in the sense that it is so easy to digest, easy to read. And sometimes that can be, from a health literacy, a bit challenging when we talk about, medical jargon or medical terminology, but I appreciate that you took that time to really make it easy for us, that is either not in the area of medical field or just, reading about our own journey and understanding what that means for us. So thank you so much for that. And then let's dive into, your journey. So we're going to ask a few questions about, how you got there, how that journey came about, what steps that you took to get to that journey. So my first question to you is, so in your book, you wrote, that you specifically wrote this book for, persons that are struggling with hypothyroidism. Can you just define, what that is for those of us that, may or may not be familiar with what hypothyroidism is?
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to thank you so much for having me and also for acknowledging I really took the time and really put the effort in trying to put the terms in this book in everyday terms so that the average person who's not familiar with the medical industry or the terms related to it can understand it and get something from the book to help their thyroid. Hypothyroidism. So this is a condition where the thyroid gland doesn't produce enough thyroid hormones. And the thyroid hormone, the importance of it is that it regulates metabolism and various bodily functions. And so many times someone will start complaining of fatigue or weight gain or sensitivity to cold or concentration difficulties. These are some of the symptoms of hypothyroidism. And so if you're starting to feel these symptoms, my recommendation is to first, go see your physician and have them run lab work to see if that is something that you could be struggling with.
Okay. So what I also read in your book is your entire journey.
Yeah.
Can you share, with us, like when did that first point, that aha moment to you as to, this journey, and then what process took you there? And the last of that question is, is your thyroid normal now, and have you achieved your goal into to what you were intending in the beginning? Because I think what is best I'm a process minded person. Now, not everyone may be, I'm a linear logical thinker. Some of us may not be, but yet there's a process for everyone, right? We may not have the same starting point, or could be the same, or we may be in the middle but yet end up in the same results. And so I wanted to kind of, if you can expand your journey of that from beginning to end, and how do you feel now, in achieving your goal and your sustaining and maintenance of that?
Yeah, sure. So I want to say that for years I struggled with chronic stress, and I had not, 15 years ago or more, had not correlated it with thyroid. No physician had ever told me that this could be a direct link. It took me going, I was actually in the process of grad school and as an occupational therapist. And in occupational therapy, there's a mental health component, which deals with chronic stress, trauma, and so many other diagnoses on the mental health side and emotional health side. And then there's also courses where you're taking it on physical disabilities and things like that. And so when I'm sitting in these classes during the semesters, I'm starting to see me in those pages, my
Mm-hmm.
symptoms, things that I struggled with for years. And at that time I was on thyroid medicine, and I was told by my physician, it's something that runs in your family. As you get older, it gets worse, so we may have to increase your thyroid medication as you get older. And I kept asking, well, what is it that caused it? Well, it's something that can run in your family, and you've got several people. But I always wanted to know, but what is it that is causing this hormone to decline and for my thyroid to become more sluggish? And so the medication worked. It leveled everything out, and but there's restrictions to it. Like, one of the things that they'll tell you is that you cannot drink or eat for an hour after taking the medication, like, to have it
Mm-hmm.
settle in your system. And that's one thing I was like, this is becoming burdensome for me, because when I get up, I want my coffee, and I don't want the restrictions.
Right.
Even though
Right.
people may say, well, you can wait an hour, or I know people have said, if you get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, take it so it's in your system. But that wasn't me either. I wasn't getting up in the middle of the night.
Sure.
So what I found was, as I'm looking through these books, that a huge component for this is my story. And I know that America a lot of us are stressed out. A lot of us say they have PTSD or trauma or chronic stress or chronic anxiety. The way our culture is, it's a highly stressed culture. Okay. So when I'm looking at the fact that I know I had chronic stress for over 10 years, I've been in counseling for it, therapy, all that stuff. One thing that no one ever put together was the fact that there's a possibility that the sympathetic system in the body, which
Mm-hmm.
is your fight or flight system,
Mm-hmm.
kind of decreases the function of the body, so that you don't have many needs. Your adrenaline kicks in, and so what happens is you don't have a need for hunger. Sometimes you don't have a need to
Mm-hmm.
go to the bathroom, because when this fight or flight system kicks in, it's about survival.
I was just going to ask you, it sounds like you're in survival mode, like
In
you in
survival.
that way. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I started thinking, as I'm looking through my books, well, if the sympathetic system in fight or flight is engaged more times than not, what is that doing to our body? Because one of the other symptoms I had was chronic constipation that
Mm.
nobody could figure out over 20 something years. No medication, even the strongest prescription medications, nothing was working. And
Mm.
I thought to myself, well, if the sympathetic system slows down the areas of our body that we don't need, just to kind of get us out of danger,
Right.
one being digestion, and I have
Mm-hmm.
chronic constipation, could it possibly be that my body has not settled down long enough to regulate itself back out in order for my system to start running safely again and normally again? And so that's what took me on the journey of, how do you decrease that fight or flight long enough
Mm-hmm.
to restart certain systems that may be cut off or even sluggish. Okay. Which in my books at school, I was taught this, the parasympathetic system. And this parasympathetic system is the rest and digest system. So
Okay.
I thought, well, that makes sense to me, that there has not been much rest and digest in my life. So what are these things that I need to do to kick that back in, kind of let the fight or flight rest so that these other systems can function normally? And maybe, just maybe, this was all in theory. This was
Mm-hmm.
all in theory at
Mm-hmm.
the time. Maybe,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe, if I can regulate my digestive tract, it wouldn't be stressing out my thyroid. And also, the stress wouldn't be stressing out my thyroid. And if I just was consistent long enough, I'd be able to rebalance it. And
Mm-hmm.
so, jump forward into 2022. I thought I was still in the process of rebalancing my thyroid. I wasn't sure exactly if I had, or if it was still low, or if my body was completely out of whack at that point, because I had stopped getting my regular blood tests. And I ended up with COVID. And
Mm.
yeah, I had ended up with COVID, and I was so sick that the doctor ran all labs to make sure that I was okay. And when
Okay.
they came back, they said, "Are you taking your thyroid medication?" So I'm thinking, oh, well, this is it. They're going to tell me I screwed my whole body up. And I said, no. And they said, well, good, don't, because you're rebalanced. And they were like, and I don't know how that happened. And I told them, I've been working on this for 8 months, and I'm thankful. I'm not thankful that I got sick, but thankful enough that labs were run, and my theory of rebalancing through food and supplements and vitamins rebalanced everything, and I've been back to normal ever since.
And that's really amazing. I'm just listening to you, right? I'm thinking from you went from a state of like and correct me if I'm wrong in this in describing, is that you went from overdrive, right? I feel like you were like in hyper overdrive for quite some time, and then we get to a point where you're addressing this hyperdriveness or overdriveness where you had been, and got to where, as you said, rest and digest and the parasympathetic, in that way that we've, stopped that overdrive, and we're now gotten it to a point where you're balanced in a state of what I call, for lack of better terminology, like a homeostasis, right? You feel like
That's
you've gotten yourself in the way that we're stopping all that. But yet I'm fascinated by the journey of where you started, and how you put your puzzle pieces together, and then now you're at at a maintenance, right? I feel like you're steady, you've steady, you recognize what are some of the key points that you've needed to address in order to get to that rebalance. Now, reading a little bit further, you have some resources here of like some nutrition definitely does play a role in our lives. I think that whether you have a thyroid as your condition or any other condition, we also recognize that stress does impact our life as well. So we do definitely want to put two and two of those together. From a nutrition standpoint, what are some of the areas that have helped you, be it food, be it supplements, be it anything that had helped you in your journey? Can you, kind of enumerate a few things that you started out with? Start out small, small, build up to it. What are some of those resources that you could share with us?
Yeah, I want to say two of the major things, because my focus was, because I know that my stress level had been high for so long. So my process was to kick in the rest and digest, and to lower the fight or flight. So I did some research on adaptogens.
Okay.
Adaptogens, there are so many different herbs in the form of mushrooms, and the edible mushrooms, and so many other herbs out there that can come in capsule form. And so I did research on it. And even though a lot of like things that aren't medication, it'll say may help, hasn't been proven. Lots of times certain things haven't been proven because the medical industry really didn't take the time to really dive into it. They took the time more on the medicine side of things, but not
Mm-hmm.
on some of these more natural things. So
Mm-hmm.
when I read that it really did not affect anything negatively, I said, you
Mm-hmm.
know what? I'm going to take the adaptogens along with vitamin D, um,
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people don't talk about, especially if you are under a certain age, the need for vitamin D. They may tell you, go get some sun. It's good for your mood, things like that. It's good for your bones. They don't stress the importance of how vitamin D, even though we call it a vitamin, is so essential that it's more looked at as a hormone in our body because it's
Mm,
essential and it works in so many areas of our body that it's needed. And we don't make it. So we need to get it from other sources. And so and too, I worked in hospitals and skilled nursing. I noticed a lot of the skilled nursing, they do, every person that comes in usually gets a vitamin D because most people are deficient.
right, right.
They mostly give vitamin D2. I did my research to find out that there's a vitamin D3
Mm,
that is stronger, and D3 needs to be mixed with vitamin K2 in order for it to penetrate on the cellular level. So,
gotcha.
yeah, so I started just doing things like that, taking magnesium. Magnesium quiets the system, calms the
Hmm.
system. I'm starting to take Epsom salt baths to get the more minerals. I was just doing things like that. Vitamin B that is depleted in our system when we are highly stressed. Um, all of that is what I just kind of started. And I said, okay, once I got that started, then let me take it to the food. And I realized a lot of the foods that I needed for better health and nutrition, it wasn't in my normal diet either. And I really
Mm,
wasn't told by a doctor what to eat. They would give me medications, but they weren't telling me what to eat. And even certain things to kind of seal up my digestive tract, because that was another huge issue. In order for me to start going regularly, I was told drink more water, maybe like Metamucil, the type of fiber type of powders, but not so much. Well, are you eating nuts and seeds and things like that that naturally will make you go? So I just said, you know what? As I'm doing this research, I am going to add these foods that are not my norm and just see what happens. And slowly but surely, my system regulated itself.
now you mentioned so we talked about stress and the impact of that with thyroid, and then there's other things in the book that you mentioned. What are some of the interconnected systems in your body in order to, you know, require regulation, restoring that balance? How does this, relate to thyroid? Like, what are some other interconnected systems that, if our thyroid is off whack, that or let me rephrase that, that could impact, our thyroid.
Yeah, menopause,
Okay.
that's one. Someone who is pregnant. I
Mhm.
know if you look in some of these group communities, that people that are struggling with their thyroid and nobody has an answer to it, because thyroid is from the endocrine system and it's a hormone, anything that will kind of stress out the thyroid or the hormone system. I know
Mhm.
people that have gluten or autoimmune diseases, they also have thyroid issues. So there's a lot, but I want to say the majority, when I hear that somebody says no one can find an answer and everything else is balanced in my body, most of the time when we talk about what's going on in your personal life, it's chronic stress. It's chronic stress. I mean, stress is seen as the silent killer.
Mhm.
And no, like I know that many of our doctors' offices these days, they give us an assessment and they'll
Mhm.
ask you, are you depressed? Because there's been an increase even in suicide rates. Um,
Right.
but that level, I mean, you don't have to be depressed to also feel the stress of life. Some people can say, I'm managing stress very well, maybe psychologically, but your body is still feeling it. It's kind of all interwoven. So you may be sleeping. Like for me, people would have told me that they have insomnia. For me, I never did. I could fall. I couldn't remember even closing my eyes when my head hit the pillow. I was fast asleep. I'd never had insomnia. So if that's the only thing that I thought of, well, I have insomnia, so I must have stress, I would have said, well, I don't have stress because I fall asleep very quickly. So it really depends. But that's some of the other things: insomnia, waking up during the night, all of these things, hot flashes when you're not in menopause.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as I'm listening into our conversation and understanding, yeah, not only is your journey, but it sounds like also you had both, a holistic approach as well as seeking a health professional to make sure to elaborate in this guidance in your journey. Did I get that in how you mapped out your journey into your goal?
Yes, I had asked my physician, my primary doctor is an internist. And so
Mm-hmm.
she said, you're on such, well, not at such a low dose, but my dose was low compared to many others. And she said, come off of it. She said, but that's going to require me running blood tests every so many months to make sure that your system is not completely out of whack. But when I had gone back to for my doctoral, life became busy and I stopped going every 3 or 4 months for her to run my blood. So when I ended up with COVID, I'm thinking, oh my God, I think, because literally I went to the doctor not realizing I had COVID. I was sitting down eating at a restaurant
Mm-hmm.
and went unconscious sitting
Oh
down.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they were like, that's not normal for you. I mean, literally where my sister, I was out with my sister at the time, she was shaking me for close to 2 minutes trying to wake
Oh
me up.
my
Yeah.
goodness.
So because it was me sitting down and fell out and then couldn't wake up, um, they were like, we're just running all systems. And that's when I thought they were going to tell me, you really blew out that thyroid, like you really screwed your body up. But it wasn't. It was just that I'd gotten sick.
Got it. So, well, thankfully, I
Yeah.
mean, not that we would want you to catch COVID for sure. That wasn't
Yeah.
anything that that was in the plans. I'm sure not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I think that it's important that to call out in the sense that everyone's individualistic, but that there's a partnership that you have, with your healthcare professional, and that you're able to. Uh, Map out a health journey, because and for me, I think what's important that I see in the community in taking care of the patient is that even if you have different resources,
Mhm.
be it a registered dietitian, a nutritionist, your primary care, they all are in your sphere of taking care of you. And I think that care team is really important in the sense of what's happening with you and communicating, and what are some of the best approaches in resolving some of the things that your symptoms and you're experiencing. Would you say that in your experience, having to have your collaboration, work with your primary care doctor, yourself, your own research, and all the other supplements and nutrition that you've done, do you feel that that is an approach that we should take in looking at our own health, combating stress, and making sure we are able to have that communication and have a roadmap, it's somewhat of a roadmap that we can um, execute. Because sometimes the other thing is we also um, aim high, while it's great in our goals, but sometimes we have to also look at some realistic steps, right? Would you say that that would be something in your thyroid journey, that how be realistic about those goals and where you're trying to get to?
Yeah. One thing I want to stress the point is, like, I know for me, I'm one of those that I have to, like, I'm very consistent and I'm very resilient and I just keep moving forward. Um, there's a lot of times people have told me, I tried everything, nothing works. But when we talk about the length of time that they spent on it, they didn't spend enough time. Most medications are meant to alleviate symptoms very quickly. But when
Mhm.
you are dealing with foods and supplements and things like that, it takes weeks, sometimes months, for your body to readjust, for it to be full, like flowing through the system in a way for change to start to happen. And I knew that there were a few systems in my body that I had to work on. And I said, you know what? Patience and longevity is going to be key here. And I also believe that it's so important to have a collaboration of healthcare professionals. Um, the reason why I didn't go that route is because I had been talking to physicians for a while about my, well, the mental health community knew about my stress. My general practitioner knew about, full body, what was going on. Nobody was interconnecting the links. And I feel like if the doctor's only looking at physical medicine, but not the what's happening emotionally, mentally, they're going to miss something. And maybe they don't have all the answers because everybody's specializing in whatever their field is. But we need to have a collaboration. And so going to my physician, I'd gone so many times about so many issues. I decided, you know what, I'm getting this degree that works in mental health and physical conditions and disabilities. Let me see if I can figure this thing on my own, and then I'll know. Because I like if I said I need a nutritionist for what, and
Right.
this is what I believe. Well, how do you know? Because they had sent me to a GI doctor for my digestion and my constipation, and everybody was like, "You're clear, nothing wrong." And I said, "I can't keep getting these answers. I need to figure this out on my own so that when I get the answer, I know now the team that needs to come together to help."
So we're nearing our time, but I want to make sure we get the key points.
Mm-hmm.
So one is that every person is individualistic, right? Not everyone's going to have the same experiences. On the other hand, what the second takeaway I have in reference to your book is that it could be a starting point of using it as a start map, right? To see where do I fit in this, and if I have a thyroid situation, and I'm looking to read your resource and looking to see where I fit in this scheme of things, I can start somewhere that potentially would be where my starting point is, and then collaborating with your healthcare professionals to be able to, and that's my third takeaway, in that to find that roadmap that would fit for you. And I think that's key also, that while we are excited to for me it's like giving that resource, but also taking into consideration my own life and lifestyle and what is happening with me. But it helps to have a guide. I think that's the part that I like the most, is having to have a guide, a sense of a beginning roadmap that could potentially be my story, but yet there's going to be some, changes here and there. But I have someone that I can reach out to that can, help me in that process. Now, that said, how can we reach you if we want further information? And can we talk a little bit about your book, in terms of resources and how they can get that book? I understand that it's available for purchase and it's discounted till February 1st. Is that correct? So what's the best way to
It's half
get
off.
all that good stuff?
Yeah. So I'm going to actually share it with you on the link, or even afterwards on your link on LinkedIn. And anybody who's interested, they can reach me at www.ot.wellness.com. They can email me, Christa@otwellness.com. And I'm all over social media, including LinkedIn. So you can always just shoot me a DM, and I'm very accessible through email, even my phone. A lot of people will not readily give out their phone, but yeah, and on all different platforms.
Perfect. I will, for our listeners, I'm definitely going to put that into the comment. I will have that information. And just to wrap things up, this is a two-part for us too, Dr. Spence. We are going to see her for occupational therapy in April. I'm excited about that too, because, for some of us, we've come across, occupational therapy in our life as well. And so again, we have a resource for you guys, and we're going to talk about, how she helps, adult and young and older folks, really navigate through, range of motion. And she has some great tips. And, if you're in that space right now to live a better quality life. So I'm excited to bring her back in April. Well,
Thank
Dr. Christa Spence, thank you for your time today.
thank
I
you,
really
Sarah.
appreciate all the information. Is there anything just to close that you may want to share?
I just want to say that each and every one of us knows our bodies. Be the advocate and keep talking and researching and talking to your physicians and your healthcare team because you know your body best, and don't give up.
Well, thank you so much for the encouragement. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And I wish you all a great week.